Friends, let us all welcome with a big round of applause, Mr. Lawrence Chong.
So I attended the Genfest of 1995. Yeah, the looks betray, okay? So I'm happy to be here to make a small contribution to your experience. But I want to say this thing. In 95, I received a gift, an understanding of something precious. And it is a truth that stayed with me till this day. And it is something that I want to give to you. That year, in 1995, there was a war going on in Yugoslavia. Yet we heard stories of forgiveness. There were stories of poverty in many parts of the world. And we heard testimonials of radical giving. In other words, as we listen to the many stories of courage, love, and unity, I felt very strongly in that moment. In that stadium of 16,000, we have already achieved the vision of a united world. And that it is possible. But then came the message of Chiara Lubich, the one who founded our global movement of youth, born for the mission of unity. She told us, Jen, young people, do not be satisfied with crumbs on the table, but be ambitious, aim high, aim for the greater, do more for the united world. She said that one day, we will go to the schools, to the churches, to the offices, to tell them how to live for a united world. At that time, to be honest, I was the youngest in the group. I was 16, I just finished high school, I still do not know what I would do. But hearing that call to be ambitious for the greater, to bring about the united world, I did not know how, but I said yes. Probably because of this certainty, God led me down another path to start a business. You see, with God, never be too proud to assume that you know everything, for He will have a greater plan than you can ever imagine. And because of the experience of 1995, because it stayed with me, to be ambitious for the greater, to bring about the united world, so I decided to commit the work that I do, all the work that we do at our company, to bring about the united world in the economy. My company is an innovation company and an EOC, an economy of communion enterprise. And the name is Consulus, which in Latin means with others. From a small seed in Singapore, we are now present as a network in 16 countries, in the continents of the Americas, Asia, Europe, and now we will enter Oceania. We managed to attract many purpose-driven individuals and teams of many different religions, nationalities, because like you, they are all inspired by the idea that a united world in the economy is what we need today. I remember in the early days, we had no revenue. Once we will offer a project, so long as we accept that we have to participate in cheating the government grant system. Among us, we discussed what it meant if we accept this option of cheating the government. We decided to say no because we were fighting for a greater purpose. But it's easy to speak about this experience now. But during that time, it can suck out all the energy from your soul because it meant that you have to be prepared to shut down the company. But after we rejected that project, within 1 month, someone referred another project to us. It's the same amount that we lost, $100,000 US. It was a precious lesson in our founding days to have the hope and courage to stand up to the tyranny of the system, and that we can survive if we believe in the united world. Dear friends, dear brothers and sisters, dear alumni of the Genfest, today, the topic that we are discussing is complex: poverty. Which is why, in 1991, as many of you have heard, when Chiara Lubbock, when she was in Brazil, launched us on a revolution through the economy of communion. But right from the start of 1943, the founding of the Focolare movement, the movement has always started with the poor. You remember the image of one Focolarina next to a brother in need, and then another Focolarina with another person in need, giving to the poor, taking care of the poor. So what has changed? From 1991, the understanding that became clear is that it's not enough to just have people of charity, of goodwill, but to bring our ideas of unity towards transforming the economic imbalance. It was clear to me that Chiara could have said, let us have entrepreneurs of communion, which would have been easier. I know many friends who have people of goodwill who would certainly fall into the category. They are nice people, people of goodwill, who are also generous and are already giving their time to the poor. But no, Chiara declared that we ought to bring about an economy of communion. And some of you are students of economics. So you know that the economy means the entirety of how the system works, how one buys, sells, operates, exists within the system. In other words, it's either everything or nothing. In fact, when Pope Francis met us, those of us involved in the economy of communion last year from all over the world for the 25th anniversary, he reminded us of the intuition of Chiara and said, I quote, "The economy of communion, if it wants to be faithful to its charism, must not only care for the victims, but build a system where there are fewer victims, where possibly there may no longer be any. As long as the economy still produces one victim, and there is still a single discarded person, communion has not been realized. The celebration of universal fraternity is not full. Therefore, we must work towards changing the rules of the game of the social economic system. Imitating the Good Samaritan of the Gospel is not enough." End quote. Like my fellow brothers and sisters of the EOC, I was stunned by the power of his words, but I'm also grateful. Because you must know, in order to bring about the economy of communion in the early days, many first-generation founders of the EOC enterprises sacrificed a lot personally to even demonstrate that this concept is even possible. And some of them are here with us in this room, like Tess, Francis, whom I'm going to interview as part of this talk. But I understood why he said this. Because regardless of our sacrifices as the first and second generation entrepreneurs of the EOC, we cannot forget the bigger picture. The struggle for unity in the global economy matters the most. So now that we are clear it's the economy, not just a group of people, the next question is, can we eradicate poverty? Or at least, in the words of the Pope, create a system which generates fewer victims? In short, the answer is yes. Because we actually have more food, more resources, more houses than the world will ever need. We are in an age of oversupply, but it's not well distributed. And many experts have affirmed that eradicating extreme poverty is possible. But if it is possible, why are we not doing it? Why is it so hard to light up this room? It's like you have all these lights and people only want to switch on 2 lights. It's crazy. In my view, there is a greater form of poverty that prevents us from eradicating poverty. And I'd like to highlight 3 of them. We have poverty of trust. We have poverty of institutions. And we have poverty of solutions. They are all interconnected. And let me explain them point by point. Now, how do you create the conditions for sharing? Even ideas, or even goods in any organization or community, you need trust. You know what we did just now? Turn around and ask each other to share like this. This is not normal. This is not normal. In many countries, you take a while. You don't turn around and share like that. Okay, but you have established trust. You can do that. So, how do you create conditions? You need trust. And this has been verified by many studies of social behavior. In fact, in 2016, Google published a groundbreaking organizational study about what makes the perfect team after analyzing all these teams in a company using data. Google concluded, and this is very interesting, that the best teams are not because the team players are drawn from the best universities or because they were given the most money or resources. It is those teams that can best create a psychologically safe environment that respects each person, his or her contribution, enabling a comfortable exchange of ideas, which then unleashes the best innovation or performance. Well, they use a very big word, psychologically safe. Psychologically safe means trust. So we simplify it for Google. They are not always very smart. And it's a process by design. You cannot assume that trust will automatically be there. It needs to be built concretely. And because the biggest problem we have in our societies is the poverty of trust. We live in an Instagram generation where we generate the perception that life is good for so many of us, while in truth, many people are suffering. To enable trust, we need to renew our institutions. And we have major challenges here because we have many insular, tone-deaf institutions in business, politics, and according to Pope Francis, even in faith. About 8 years ago, and I can see some familiar faces, some of you were involved in this, I was involved in organizing a global campaign called Arms Down to implore governments to convert 10% of their military spending to meet the budgets required for the then UN Millennial Goals, Development Goals, to eradicate extreme poverty. At that time, the global military spending was about $1.6 trillion. Now, this is madness. Why do we need to put aside $1.6 trillion to prepare to kill each other? When we just need a percentage to solve extreme poverty, this is crazy and nuts. I never understood this equation. This campaign was a brilliant idea by our Japanese friends from Rishu Kosekai. I supported it wholeheartedly. We worked hard. By gathering signatures from around the world, and the people to support us, we gathered in total about 20 million signatures. But in our appeals to governments at the UN level and in parliaments, no one took us seriously. We need to talk. No one took us seriously. Only one nation, can you guess which nation signed on this pledge? There's only one country who signed on this pledge. Anyone? Costa Rica. Yeah. And it's the country with no military. So anyway, this event confirmed one thing for me, and it stayed with me for life. To change the world, we cannot wait for these guys in the existing institutions. But we need better leaders. We need a new generation of political, social, and economic leaders who are brave and committed to shape a united world. The current system is broken, self-centered, and they cannot solve problems in a common sense way. That is the problem we have. So, Chiara Lubbock, in a speech in 1984, gave us a vision of what kind of institutions need to emerge to enable trust in our economic institutions. She said, and I quote, "Every person in the working world, from the owner to the administrator, from the director to the technicians, from office workers to laborers, in order to build solidarity with the others, must love everyone in such a way that he or she becomes one with the others." In this spirituality, mutual love leads to reciprocal understanding, to sharing the fatigue of the others, to make our own the problems of the others, to seek solutions together. It leads us to find common agreements for new forms of organization in the working world. All come to share and participate in the means of production and in the fruits and profits, end quote. So the challenge for the class of 2018, for the batch of 2018, you, is who among you will be the brave leaders to go into the many dark rooms in the economy, at times alone, holding on to the hope of unity while trying to convert one person at a time to unity. This is our most important and pressing collective challenge. The next challenge is, are the solutions for solving poverty enough today? Overall, corporate giving, that means giving from business, has actually gone up. More companies are actually involved in some form of corporate social responsibility. Pope Francis, however, has been critical of a perverse form of corporate social responsibility. When a company has harmed the environment, and then they seek amends. I agree, but again, it's easy to criticize. But what we need are new business models that will create virtuous cycles, not those that are perpetrating a vicious cycle and then go on to have a corporate social responsibility program. And dear brothers and sisters, if you look at the issues that are rising, the multifaceted problems, challenges of poverty due to climate change, due to indiscriminate war, due to the upcoming technological and urban disruption, or due to corrupted governments, then you realize that it's time to stop being simplistic, that charity or philanthropy will solve these challenges, but to think deeper, and to be more creative to solve these challenges of our time. Which brings me to the next aspect, which is about solution. So what the world needs today is more than generosity, but purpose-driven generosity that generates bigger impact. So that means that once you have found your place in the world, you need to think how you can be creative to generate impact, to contribute to solving financial poverty, poverty of trust, and poverty of good institutions. At my company, we practice what we call relational innovation. It is inspired by the principles of the economy of communion. What is relational innovation? Innovation that is born out of a relationship of unity with the other, for the other. It is an approach that allows you to create solutions based on the person and creating impact based on unity. So how do we do it? The first step of relational innovation is to put yourself in the situation of the person you seek to serve. So for example, when you are in your youth group and you want to do something to help a community, don't just rush into fundraising or building the startup. Spend time with them and take time to consider yourself, the situation of the person, his or her hope and concerns, to understand what kind of solutions will be more relevant, involve the person. Then the next step of relational innovation is to identify the unity, the kind of alliance, partnership that is needed to succeed. So again, in your case, if you are trying to help a community or a situation, consider who else you will need to bring together to solve this challenge. Be very clever at building partnerships. Be very creative at bringing unlikely partners. Maybe people who don't like to talk to each other. But because of you, they came together. The third step of relational innovation is to shape what we call catalytic solutions. Now, sound very big word, but in simple terms, how can this solution have a multiplying effect to generate what we call relational goods? So again, in your attempt to help a community, even though it might be a small effort, think bigger, think further. How your project can inspire others. How your project can have a greater multiplying effect. We have done this in our work for a smart township project in Sarawak, Malaysia. Actually, the client just wanted a normal property project. But turns out that after they met us, they found their purpose. And now they understood that it's not just meant to be property, they are supposed to bring people together. And that's what they did. They brought people together through the arts, through community, and improving trust. And to make a difference. And some of you know that in Asia, many young couples cannot afford housing. Because of this practice of relational innovation, this developer has found a way to design a beautiful housing project that is beautifully designed and affordable for young couples. So it proves that when you try your best, you can indeed influence and shape people for good. Dear brothers and sisters, if you truly want to shape a united world in the economy to make it more inclusive, fair, so as to eradicate poverty, we cannot be satisfied with crumbs. We must aim for greater. As we do our work, or in our schools, in the comfort of our homes or lecture halls, let us remember those without a roof over their heads. As we enjoy our food during these days and the cost of our travels, let us remember the thousands who do not have the certainty of a meal. With the talents and intuition that we have been blessed with, we need to be able to look at the homeless, the hungry, and the weary in the eye, that we are doing everything we can to shape a better world for them. As a uniquely called generation, we need to work together and also hold each other accountable on how to evolve our global movement to bring about a united world. And you can start now. Because if you wait, you never do it. I remember after the Genfest of 95, I went back to my parish to start a Youth for United World group. And one of the things we did was to gather our excess clothes, the good ones, and make sure they're good in condition. We took a boat from Singapore to Batam in Indonesia. We spent time with our friends, spend time with them, go with them to the churches. And we didn't want to give them the clothes because we wanted to respect them. So we charged them at very ridiculous prices, and you could see the joy in their faces when they have the power to buy clothes from us And they probably think it's a good deal because they say, I bought a lot of clothes from Singaporeans who usually are very expensive clothes, you know. But there was this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful unity. And it changed the life of many young people. And the other thing in Singapore at that time, now it's so much better, usually a parish will have their own youth group. Another parish will have their own youth group, you know. We are all very proud of our parishes, you know, but it's hard to bring people together. So ours was the first one that was present in 2 parishes. 1 youth group, 2 parishes. And we had a combined camp of about 60 youth. So, with the skills that you have learned here, with the light that you have received, there's so much poverty around us. There are people who live in the shadows of distrust, people who suffer from unjust institutions, and above all, a class of poverty suffers under a climate of distrust and uncaring institutions. You need to continue to practice this skill, this very precious skill of thinking in terms of unity and building unity. And one of the things I noticed as adults, as a bit older person now, is that as people grow older, they tend to lose their light, their smiles, their joys. I pray that you never lose your sense of hope and joy. I often look at the older Popularino and Popularinas, and their joys and their smiles will be enough to inspire me. And I want to always have their joy. So, I remember, the heart of our revolution is love. And yesterday we were sharing with the group in our EOC. If you want to be a Gen for life, EOC is good for you. I mean it, yeah. I have a beautiful life. I'm living a Gen life every day, even though I'm technically no longer a Gen. They had to move me out, I'm too old. For my generation, I was crazy about Harry Potter. I know quite a lot of you know about Harry Potter. Remember the scene of the evil character trying to control the mind of the good character, who is Harry Potter? So the only way Harry Potter could break the mind control of the evil one, Voldemort, was to remember the moments of joy and love. Because, dear alumni, as you leave this place, you go back to your realities. There will be many moments that darkness will seize you. Even your friends whom you admire in the work of unity might have abandoned the cause. You might even be criticized. You might even be scandalized. But the question is, will you still go ahead for the united world? Again, think of your moment of 2018, just as I think about my moment of 1995. Think of the poor and continue to follow your path to make a difference. Every one of you, every one of us will be called to do something. Small or big does not matter. Every effort counts, so long as you do out of love. Your generation can be the generation that go beyond these walls and come up with solutions that make poverty history. Thank you.